today's session, actually, we will cover Aladdin contract management module. And for this, the prerequisite is you should have some basic knowledge about Aladdin's other basic modules, such as assets, work order, inventory, etc. So without any further delay, let's get into the actual demo. I hope everyone has some sort of basic understanding of how Aladdin basic modules work and the functionality of Aladdin basic modules. So let's get into the Aladdin. So as usual, this is our basic Aladdin login page. This is, and in terms of contract management modules and its functionality is available only in Aladdin admin login. So requester and crew login functionalities remains the same as usual. There are no changes in requester and crew login. The only changes related to contract management, or I cannot call it as a changes, the functionality, additional functionality related to the contract management are available only in admin login. So before we get into the admin login, uh, I what I suggest is let us have some basic understanding about contract management and the basic definitions of contract management with respect to the industry's best practice and also with respect to Aladdin's contract management modules. So to do that, I have created few slides which will give you some elaboration in terms of understanding how Aladdin contract management works. So before getting into the software, I want to make sure everyone understands what contract management and everyone is in the same page. So what is contract management in Aladdin? Aladdin contract management is a combination of three operational modules. What are those operational modules? Subcontract management, client contract management, KPI builder. What is subcontract management? To manage the contractual obligations or service delivery of the subcontractor. This module will be used to manage the subcontractor's performance. If you are responsible to manage client's portfolio or client's asset, and if you have subcontracted part of that job to some subcontractor or to some other company, this model will be used to manage their performance, their team, their SLAs, their payout slab, everything. So to manage the contractual obligation and their service delivery as the subcontractor. Client contract management. What is client contract management? You will have some sort of contracts with your client where you are delivering your service to the client, and your team is deployed, your in-house team is deployed to deliver those tasks with respect to the contractual obligations. So to manage the contractual obligations or service delivery of your own team to manage your client's contractual expectation. So this model will be used to manage your client's contract. This model will be used to manage your subcontractor's contract. KPI builder. KPI builder will be used to build user-defined KPI formulas to be used in above mentioned modules. So KPI builder is a formula builder tool where you can use several parameters available in Aladdin, using which you can build your own KPI formula, which will be consumed by subcontractor and client management modules. And how it will be used, you will understand when we get into the actual software. So so here KPI builder is straightforward. It's very simple. It's a screen where you will build your own formulas and you will save it, and further those formulas will be used in these two modules. But what are the main components of subcontract management and client contract management? The main components are in subcontract management are assets. Assets are the list of assets which subcontractor's responsibility is to maintain all those assets. So in this module, the assets which has to be maintained by a subcontractor will be listed here. The team of your subcontractors company, those team members who are responsible to manage these assets will be managed in this module. The budget required to manage this team and the assets will be managed in this module. SLAs are service level agreements, which will govern the budgetary requirements, which will govern the team's performance, which will also govern the assets performance. So SLA will be used to manage these three components of your subcontractor management portfolio. If you come to the client contract management, same like subcontract management. Here, the assets which you are responsible to maintain, the team, which is your team, your own in-house team, who is responsible to maintain the client's asset. The budget, this is your budget to maintain the to manage this team which is maintaining this all these assets. And again, similar to subcontract management, SLAs here will manage the performance of your team, the assets which is maintained by your team, and the budget which is used to build your own team. So if you see the main difference between these two, everything is same except few things. One, here the assets will be in subcontractor will be your asset or your client's asset. Here it will be only your client asset. This will not be your assets. And here the team will be subcontractor's team, and here it will be your team. Budget, SLAs all remains the same. So in other words, if you know how to manage the subcontractor management, you will easily implement client contract management as well. There's no changes. So let's get into our software now. Since we know the basic of contract management, I'm logging into Aladdin admin login. So as I mentioned before, contract management is the combination of three operational modules, which are subcontract management, client contract management, and KPI builder. If you see here the modules available in our Ala admin login, there are three more additional modules you can see. One is the client module, which is basically the client contract management module. Next one is the under personal, you will see subcontractor. This is the subcontractor contract management module. This is number two. Number three is the KPI module, which is the KPI builder. So these three are the additional modules which will be available in your contract management module if you have opted to have contract management in your Aladdin database. So now, since we know these are the three modules, and I also mentioned that if you know subcontractor, you will implement client, and if you know client, you can implement subcontractor. So just to keep this demonstration a straightforward demonstration, I want to start with the subcontractor management, because usually the contract management module is usually used to manage the subcontractors more than compared to the client management. So let me open subcontractor management. When you click subcontractor management, you will see list of contracts available, which are subcontracts. So how to start with the subcontract management is to simply click add button. When you click add, it will ask you for the contractor name. You have to first create a contractor who is the company who is actually signing a contract with you to manage your assets or your client's assets. So let's say subcon 1 is the contractor name, address is Dubai. Let's give a phone number, and I'll give the username as sc1@mail.com and password as 1234. Active, save. So once the contractor is saved, it will start with the basic information, which is contact person. Who is the contact person in your subcontractor's company? Let's say the name is Muhammad and last name is Sharif, for example, and his email ID, mobile number, designation. You can save everything and click save. And the next tab is documents. In documents, you can add any sort of documents to this subcontract related to this subcontractor. This need not to be actual contracts, because for actual contracts we have a separate tab to manage the contracts. Here, apart from contracts, whatever additional documents you have got, it might be list of employees, it might be the any kind of permit system you have implemented. Any sort of document can be attached here with the issue date and expiry date. So whenever there's an expiry of the document, there will be a notification coming to you in your dashboard. Last tab is here is the contract, the actual contract, where you will input the contract information, which is again the basic information, and attach the actual contract into the system. How you are doing that? Click add. Contract number, actual contract number is the system generated number which comes here automatically. Contract title. Let's keep the contract title as maintenance of building A. Maintenance of building A is the contract title. And now Contract type. In contract type, we have three different types of contract. One is manpower, dedicated, on-call basis. What is the difference between these three contract types? Manpower means manpower is where subcontractor is supplying his manpower to you to manage building A. Here, building A. Example, subcontractor is supplying one electrician, one plumber, one mechanic to manage or to maintain building A, to manage the maintenance of building A. They will be working as your employees. Only difference is they will not be in your payroll actually. So the contractor has supplied three technicians, one electrician, one plumber, and one mechanic, who will be working as your employees. The only difference will be they will not be in your payroll. They are subcontracted employee. Those kinds of contracts are termed as manpower contracts. Number two, dedicated. These are service-based contracts where the team strength will not be fixed. For example, a maintenance of a fire system where the goal is achieving the highest maintenance standard. Team required to achieve that goal will be supplied by the subcontractor. And in this case, the team size will maybe small, big, it doesn't matter. The main goal here is to achieve the highest maintenance standard. If that to achieve that goal, if it requires 10 technicians, the subcontractor has to provide you 10 technicians. If to achieve that goal, if the subcontractor has to provide you 2 technicians, the subcontractor will provide you 2 technicians. There's no fixed number of manpower in this type of contracts. Third is on-call basis. On-call basis is a simple contract where there are not they are not manpower based nor service based contracts. So subcontractor will supply his team whenever client wants them. Like example, typically this type of contracts are used for assets which requires very less maintenance throughout their life cycle. So there are few assets which requires very less maintenance. The assets are built in such a way which are maintenance free. For those types of assets, it's not really useful to have contracts which is not commercially good to have contracts, because it requires very less maintenance. In that cases, you can have on-call basis or call-on basis contracts, in which whenever there is a problem, when there is a reactive issue, whenever the client wants to do a preventive maintenance, they can call the subcontractor. It's a one-time job. Call, they will come, they will do the job, they will go, and they will invoice you for that one particular task. So these are the three different types of contracts we have in Aladdin, and these are the general contract types which are used across the maintenance world. So let's start with manpower contract. Why we have contract type here is basically this contract type will define a lot of other criteria when you approach budget, SLAs, and all that. So let's select manpower here, and the next is spare parts included. Yes or no? There are few contracts which include spare part. There are few contracts which are excluded from the spare part. So let's include spare part to cover that part as well. Description. Let's say MEP, maintenance of building. Contract value. What is the contract value? What is the overall contract value for this contract? It's an annual value. Let's say 600,000, so that we can keep 50,000 per month as a contract value. Starting date. Let's start this by 1st of April, and the contract period in months 12. Notice period, let's say 30 days. This notice period is again to intimate you before the expiry of the contract, so that you can take further action. You may put this contract on hold, you may renew the contract, you may cancel the contract. It's up to you. But notice period will be used to notify you prior the end date of the contract. Cost center. Cost center is nothing but it can be a project code, it can be a cost code for your finance team, it can be any reference code for this one particular contract. Let's say it's you can create your own code if you want, because you have a plus button here. Let's say I'm saying this as building A, for example. So let me select building A. Email, active status is active for this. If there's any additional node, you can have additional node, attach the contract. It can be in a PDF document, in a Word document. Better is to have the signed contract document here to be attached. Once all this information is filled, click save. Yes, save successfully. Now, before I proceed to the further tabs, let me go back and confirm that the contract has been created and the subcontractor was created. See, this is the subcontractor which we created. Subcon1 active. This is the mail, and let me go to the contract list. If I go to contract list, I can see the list of contracts available in that one with that one particular contractor. So with one contractor, you may have one contract, or you may also have a multiple set of contracts. So if you go to one subcontractor, you will see the list of all the subcontractors you have signed with that contract. Now, at the moment, we have created only one contract. So let's open that, which has a value of 600,000, for example. And this is the start date, this is the end date. So we have already filled this form. Let's proceed to the next step, which is assets. So here you may feel there are too many tabs here for this subcontractor management configuration. But what I will suggest is, if you just go in a flow which the software wants you to go in, you will simply complete this entire contract management configuration in just few minutes. So just go step by step, whatever software wants you to do, whatever software prompts you to follow. So in couple of minutes, you will be able to complete the entire contract management configuration. So now we are in assets. In assets, we will not be able to create assets here, because assets are, if for the attendees who knows our Aladdin software, everyone knows that assets are created in asset module. So first you have to create assets in asset module, which have to be maintained by the subcontractor. And here what you will do is you will link those assets to this contract. So how you will link those assets? Click link. Here you will see the entire list of assets which are available in Aladdin in this one particular database. So what you have to do is simply you can select all, or you can select assets which are I can say which these are the assets which falls under this subcontractor's responsibility to operate and maintain. So I have selected two assets here and click add. So this two assets has been added to this particular subcontract. So once the contract is added, once the assets are added, the next tab is services. In services, here you will list down what are the different types of services you will do. It might be electrical service maintenance, or it might be plumbing maintenance, it might be HVAC maintenance. Whatever the services are, you can list down all the services here. So we have already a few services here. Let me use the maintenance as the service. Description MEP maintenance. You can have a bifurcation also. You can also call it as electrical maintenance, plumbing maintenance. There's no harm in that, but it's I have just mentioned maintenance here. So now contract information is done, assets are done, services also done. I have mentioned it's a maintenance service. Now comes to personal. So when you click personal, the system is giving you a warning saying that the budget is not yet prepared for this contract. So it's always important to have a budget before you assign a technician to the contract. Reason, without having a manpower budget, without knowing a manpower budget, you will not be able to assign an accurate or a suitable manpower to this one particular contract. So it's always advisable to create your budget first, and then come back and select the technician which fits commercially, technically within this budget. So let's go ahead to budget first and create budget, and then we'll come to personal. So in budget, there are two tabs: budget planning and budget statistics. So here in budget planning, what you'll do is you will tell the system, you will give the system the bifurcation of your budget. Your bifurcation can be a manpower budget, your bifurcation can be spare parts budget, your bifurcation can be a consumables budget. So with this, you can have multiple sets of budget. I'll give you an example. Add services maintenance, which is coming from this tab. Code is here. It will ask you whether it's a manpower budget or it's an inventory budget. Let's say it's a manpower budget. Cost center, subcontractor, employee. Budget you have allocated. This is the annual budget. Budget you have allocated for manpower, let's say 400,000 out of total 600,000, right? Next is maintenance. Let's say inventory budget. In inventory, I want to say subcontractor 1 spare parts budget, which is 100,000. So 400 plus 100,000 is 500. So we have 100,000 more in our budget. So let's add one more budget criteria or a budget component. Again, it's an inventory. Here I'm selecting consumables. So what we have here, we have maintenance manpower budget, which is a subcontractor employee. We have an inventory budget, which is a subcontractor spare parts, because this contract includes the spare parts. We have another maintenance inventory budget, which is for subcontractor consumables. So you know the difference between consumables and spare parts, right? Spare parts are the actual inventory. Consumables are the small consumables which are used on day-to-day basis, like oil, uh, lubrication oil, or it can be cotton filters, gloves. These are consumables. So for this, I'm giving an annual budget value of 100,000 again. So the total comes here to 600,000. So I think we are done with our budgeting here. Click save. So now you have told the system that you don't want to spend more than 400,000 annually on this contract in terms of manpower. You have told the system you don't want to spend more than 100,000 for spare parts, and you have told the system to not to spend more than 100,000 annually for the consumables. So now the frequency. What is the frequency? Frequency is the payment period. It can be monthly, it can be quarterly, annually, semi-annually. So let's keep monthly here and save your budget. Now, one question here to be asked is basically, I have selected subcontractor 1 spares and subcontractor 1 consumable. From where I got this information. These are the item types which are created in the inventory. So whenever you will create an inventory or a spare part in the inventory, there is a field called item type. So these are the list of item types available in the inventory. This will help you in sorting out the inventory in the work order session, and also based on this only your actual budgets will be reallocated to this contract. What I mean by that is, go to statistics, select a payment period of, let's say, April 1 to April 30. Here if you see, there are two things for this three budget components. There is a budget value, which is for consumable, it's 8,333, which is basically 100,000 divided by 12. For spares, again, it's a month. For this month, it's 8,333. For subcontractor employee, it's 33,333, again, which is 400,000 divided by 12, which is 12 is basically 12 months. Here if you see the actual numbers are 0. From where you will get these actual numbers? Whenever you will execute the work order, or whenever you assign a technician to this contract, the salary of the technician will be the actuals monthly salary. For spare parts and consumables, whenever you consume a spare part or a consumable with this item type in the work order, that the value of those consumables and spare parts will automatically get allocated here as an actual value. So using this, what you can do is you can understand or you can analyze whether you are within budget or you are going beyond your budget. So we have done the same thing. What you can do is, since you have selected monthly payment period, you can see 12 months here until the end of the contract. So even if you go to May, you can see what are the budget values and what are the actual values on this particular contract. So since we have created a budget now, shall we go and select a personal here? So again, personal, it's like asset. Personals are usually created under personal in-house. Let us go and see link personal. If you go, there's no personal available. The reason being is there's no personal created under this subcontractor employee. So let's go and create one personal. Go to in-house here. Add, let's say MEP technician crew. In-house subcontractor, it's a subcontractor employee. Select the subcontractor. This is the subcontractor which we created. Subcontract 1. Location, let it be Dubai, and his phone number and his email ID. Email ID, let's say subcontractor crew 1 at mail.com. Password 1234. Active. these are usual selection which you have to do when you create a technician. Let's say mechanic here, TMS technician, and let's keep his monthly salary to 5,000 for example, and the currency is AD. Save. So again, you can have attaches documents and shift, and you also have an SLA here, which I will explain you in later part of the session. But these are all non-mandatory. Since we have created the personal, let us go back to subcontractor. Subcontractor one is the contractor, and let's see his contract list. Select the contract. When you select the contract, now you can go to personal, go and link personal. When you select link personal, here you will get that one. My mistake, I have mentioned his salary as 50,000. Sorry, my mistake. 5,000. You go to subcontractor, contract list, select the contract. Here in personal, when you go and select link personal, here you can see the list of technicians which are under this particular contractor. So here's the technician. I'm going to select this, add. That technician has been added. Now the salary is here, and there is something called availability percentage and remaining availability. Why we have this two field of information is basically this one particular technician, your subcontractor technician, can be utilized in multiple projects or in multiple contracts. If you do so, you have to split this resource between multiple contracts. For example, we have one more contract, let's say maintenance of building B. Now this one technician is used to maintain building A and building B, then his availability for this contract will be only 50%, so that only 50% of his salary go to the actual budget of this contract. So how you will do that? Click here, availability is, let's say, 50%, and click save. So here it becomes 50%, the availability becomes 50%, so that this contract in actuals will not take his entire salary. In this contract it will take only 50% of the salary, but let's keep it in 100% now for demo purpose. So 100%. Now go to budget, and you know this budget already, you have done this. Go to statistics, select the payment period, and now you can see in your actuals one technician has been allocated for this for this contract. So the actual for the manpower is basically 5,000, which is basically the salary of the technician. So now you know that for this April month you have consumed 5,000 from 33,333. You still have around 27,000 dirhams worth of budget that can be used to add additional manpower if required in this contract. Now we have got the input for the actual value for manpower. From where you will get the input for the consumables and spare parts? You will get this, as I mentioned before, you will get this from the work order. Where in work order? Go to work order. Since I'm an admin, let me go and create one work order and show how this actually works. Add, let it be test, search the pump. Main pump is, so it says that this particular asset is under two contracts: maintenance of building A, maintenance of MAP. It's okay. Select the service type. Now we are maintenance of building A. Say emergency, scheduled. Select the technician, MAP technician. This is the only technician who is responsible to maintain these assets. So here you will not see the entire list of technicians available in Aladdin. You will see technician based on your selection of assets. Test. And now let me add inventory. Now if you see inventory, as I mentioned before, if you see the item type, subcontractor one spare, subcontractor one consumable. Let me use this both here. So oil I want to use, let's say 1, and seal I want to use, let's say 1, and say work order. Work order is saved on that one particular asset which is under this contract. Now as an admin, let me go and complete that work order. Okay. Again, there's one thing which I forget to do. Here you have to select the source. Source in-house means this is your spare parts. Dedicated or on-call basis means this is subcontractors spare parts. So this you have to select when you use the subcontractors spare parts. So, so I have closed the work order now. So now let me go to the subcontractor, because I have used the spare parts of the subcontractor and consumable of the subcontractor for the asset which is under this contract. Let me see what is the output we are getting in actual budgets. Budget statistics. So if you see here, so I have used one consumable worth 100 dirhams. I have used one spare part worth 250 dirhams. So whatever I'm consuming in the work order, which has an item type of consumable, spare subcontractor one consumable and subcontractor one space, those costs will be allocated here. So this is how you will measure the actual versus budgeted value, budget actual versus planned budget for this particular contract. So if you go to May, you will see only technician, because you have not consumed any of the spare part in the in the month of May. When you do that, then the actual will start appearing here. So till now we have completed all the 5 tabs. Let me go to work order history. Work order history is a normal work order history where you will see list of all the work orders which have been executed on the assets which are connected to this contract, with the spare parts information, labor cost information, everything. Item, again, it's the list of all the spare parts or consumables which have been consumed in the work orders executed on the assets connected to this contract. So till now we have completed the entire subcontractor module except SLA and payout slab. So let me get into SLA. What is SLA? SLA is basically the service level agreement. Everyone knows it. How to create SLA and what is the use of the SLA? SLA is used to measure the performance of your subcontractor. You will create a ranking system or a report card of your subcontractor to get the final score of his performance. Here, using what particular functionality you will build your SLA scorecard is KPI. Let's see. If you click add, contractors. If you click add button, first question it will prompt you to address is the KPI. Select the KPI. You have to select the KPI from the list of KPIs which you have built using the KPI builder module. So since it's asking us to select the KPI, it's always good to know the KPI first, build your own KPI, and then it's better to come back to this module. So let us go back to the KPI. Now, before going back to KPI builder, we need to understand the difference and the definitions of SLAs and KPI in a better way, in a simple way, in order to identify the exact equation what you need to build the KPI. So to do that, I'm going back to my presentation. So what is SLA? What is KPI? SLA is a service level agreement, is a commitment between a service provider and a client. Particular aspects of the service, which might be quality, availability of the resources or the team, and the responsibilities, are agreed between the service provider and the client. The most common component of SLA is that the service should be provided to the client as agreed upon in the contract. So the example is too much of verbiage, so let's jump into the example. Example is resolution time of work order should be less than 8 hours. So this will be one clause which will be mentioned in your contract somewhere as an SLA, but this has to be managed by your team or your subcontractor team, or this has to be achieved by your team or your subcontractor team to uh, to to uh, to to deliver the service up to the client's satisfactory levels. So what is KPI now? KPI is a key performance indicator, is a type of performance measurement. KPI evaluate the success of a particular activity, what has happened in the past. These are quantitative facts presented with a specific numeric value measured against the standard. So KPI and SLA, the main difference is basically SLA will be in a statement or in a clause form, whereas the KPI will also represent the same activity and the same target or the threshold, but it will be in a numeric value which can be used for further measurement, further analytics, and further process. So here the example for KPI is same SLA. This is the KPI for that SLA. Work request created date and time minus work order completion date and time. This both the value of this difference has to be less than 8 hours. What does it mean? So whenever the work request is created, that work request has to be converted into work order, and that work order has to be completed, and this entire time frame should be less than 8 hours. This is what they have mentioned in the SLA, which is the resolution time of work order should be less than 8 hours. What is the meaning of resolution? Resolution is the time difference between work request generated and the work order completed. So this is the time difference: work request created date and time minus work order completion date and time. So this time should be less than 8 hours. So in SLA, our example is like a clause or like a statement. In KPIs, our example is more of an equation. So in other words, if I say an equation or a formula to measure a particular activity, in our case, it's work order time, and gives us a numeric value as an output. So in SLA example, there was no output, but in KPI example, we have an equation which is giving us an output in terms of a numeric value. So this is the main difference between SLA and KPI. In few contracts, SLA will be mentioned and KPI also will be mentioned, but in most of the contract, the client will only mention SLAs. These are the target levels which you have to achieve, which your subcontractor has to achieve. But in those cases, you have to generate or you have to build your own KPIs to achieve those SLAs. So to build those KPIs, you need to convert that SLA clause into a equation form, which will give you an output in a numeric value. So this is the main difference between SLA and KPI. So let me go back to Aladdin now and see how these equations are created or built. So when you click KPI module, our KPI builder opens, and this is the list of KPIs which we have already created for testing purposes. So let me show you how to create a KPI, a new KPI. So when you click add, here are the basic fields of information for this KPI, like KPI name, description, the grouping of KPIs, which are the basically I can call it as the categories of KPIs, which will be further used in SLAs, the status of the KPI, state and dynamic value. I will explain you in a further bit further of the in few more minutes in this session. And this is the canvas for your KPI builder tool. So in this canvas, what you will do, you have 4 modules here: work order, work request, PPM, assets. So the activities which are happening inside this 4 modules will be measured using the parameters you have in each and every module. So if you click work order, you have around 15 plus touch points or parameters, you can say, which can be used to build your own equation. In work request, again, you have this many parameters. In PPM, you have this many parameters. So these are the only 4 modules which requires the measurement or analysis of their activities. So assets also have around 10 plus touch points, which can be used to build your own KPI formula or a KPI equation. Now operations, these are basically operators. Logical and numeric operators can be used to connect 1 or 2 parameters in from this modules. And functions are sum of one particular parameter, average of, maximum of, minimum of. So using these functionalities, you will create your own KPI formula. KPIs, I will explain you again. You will automatically understand what this KPI means is. So let me go, and this is a simple drag and drop tool which can be used as let's say. So now I have an operation here which is, let's say, plus, for example. So simply drag and drop. It's like building blocks. You have to build your blocks of the equation. Now the equation may have logical problems. The equation may have some real uh, relational problems. So that is a separate part. but the system will accept whatever touch points or whatever parameters you want to use in building your equation. So yeah, this is what the functionality of our KPI builder is. But here the main question is how you will build the exact equation from the SLA. That's the important question which our clients really have a hard time to understand. So let's go back to our presentation and I will explain you how to build a, a equation first out of the system and from the SLA, and then use that equation to build your KPI equation in the system. So going back to the presentation. So first of all, what you need to understand is the KPI structure in Aladdin. In Aladdin, the KPI, this is the fact. You have to, this is the rule you have to follow. The KPI output should always be in terms of percentage. The output should be in terms of percentage, which means there will be a numerator and denominator in the KPI equation. This is a must. This you have to follow as a rule one when you before you start building your KPI. So if you see a basic structure, KPI is equal to numerator divided by a denominator in terms of percentage. So KPI will have a numerator, denominator. So these are the two things which will be there in each and every, which has to be there in each and every KPI. So in Aladdin, we call numerator as a partial KPI. We call denominator as another partial KPI. When you combine these two partial KPIs into one, we call it as complete KPI. So in KPI building, we have two types of KPIs. We have partial KPI, we have complete KPI. That is what is the state, partial or complete. So whenever you build, whenever you build a numerator, that has to be a partial state. Whenever you build a denominator, that has to be in a partial state. So once you build a numerator and denominator, you will combine them with any sort of logical operator, and that will be a complete KPI. So to build one complete KPI, you have to follow these three steps: build a partial KPI, build another partial KPI, which is a denominator, and then combine these two KPIs into one complete KPI. And this complete KPI will be used in the SLA module where we came from now. Okay, now we'll go back to our example, which is resolution time of work order should be less than 8 hours. The equivalent formula for this is basically, the formula for resolution time is the work request created date and time minus work order completion date and time. So this is the SLA mentioned in the contract, and the equivalent KPI is this one. This is the formula for the resolution, and this time has to be less than 8 hours. So how you will convert this equation into Aladdin readable KPI equation? That's our next slide. So KPI example 1, building KPI for SLA. Resolution time of work order should be less than 8 hours. So the KPI formula is this. Don't see this green color and this green color block and this green color block. Let's first focus on this red color block, which is basically the same equation what you have built here, which is work request created date and time minus work order completion date and time. And this time should be less than 8 hours. So this is the core criteria or core condition of your KPI. And this every time as, so whenever you have this one block as a KPI, the problem with that is you are not saying in which date range or which range of work order or which range of PM work order or which range of assets to filter to see the end results. So here what you are saying is work request created date and time minus work order completion date and time. But in which date range? Starting from April to end of April, or starting from 2018 to end of 2000? In order to have to give, in order to give that information to the system, you need to use an additional block, which is work order date range block. So which I will show you how to use that. So once you use this with an AND operator, so this both these conditions will be executed as one complete partial KPI, which is the numerator. And the denominator, again, as I told you before, this KPI has to have a numerator and a denominator because the output is in the percentage. So everyone knows whenever you want to get an output in a percentage, you have to divide the value with the total or the maximum value of that particular parameter. Again, here is the total work order date range. So this green color and this green color block is called as a custom date range block or a custom range block, whereas the red color is the actual condition block. So first you have to build the actual condition block and then combine this actual condition block with a range block and divide the numerator with the same range block what you are using here. So this is the basic structure or basic development of the KPI module. This comes directly from your formula and have the AND operator with a range block and divide the same range block to get your KPI built. So the main task is this one. You have to identify this conditional block. Once you have identified this, this will come in each and every KPI you will build in Aladdin. So let's go and build this numerator and this denominator in Aladdin now. So as I mentioned before, we have to start with the condition block. So work request created date and time. So it's work request. Work request created date and time. So let me go to work request. In work request, we have got work request create date. So bring that block here. Work request created date and time. We have got work order completion date and time. So now go to work order and see if you can find work order completion. Modified failure. Yes, you have got work order completion date. So this two blocks has to be subtracted. You need to get an operator here. So completion date, work order completion date, and the red color is in work request created date minus. So work order completion date minus work request created date. You have just created this one block, and this has to be less than 8 hours. For that, we need to go to this block. The difference between this block and this block is this has two blocks which can accommodate two parameters. Here it's one block and one field of information where you can enter, let's say 480 minutes, which is equivalent to less than equal to, which is equivalent to 8 hours. So now you can enter 480 hours here and you can select the date range here itself. But if you click dynamic value, all this will get freezed. The reason why it will get freezed is basically this information you will enter in SLA module, because if you keep it, if you not tick this particular block becomes static. What I mean by static, this equation will be used only within this date range. You cannot filter, you cannot use this block to get the results on a different date range. So it's always good to have a dynamic KPI block using which you can use multiple filter range, multiple date ranges to get the output. So I'm keeping it as a dynamic value. So now I'll make it 0 here. So now I have created this one block, which is the condition block. So the completion time minus completion time of work order minus created date of work request should be less than some value. Now the name is work order resolution, let's say 1. This is numerator. So KPI group is, you can group KPIs, whatever KPIs you create here into groups, so that you can have a grouping score for your KPIs. Let's select work order here, active, complete or partial, let's say partial. So now I have created one, save. So the name of this block is work order resolution 1. Again, now I have created only this block in the numerator. Numerator also have this range block, which I have to include that in the same KPI. Work order resolution 1 is the KPI created. Select edit. Now work order date range. So go to work order and see if you can create a date range. I have selected create date. So how will you create a date range block is use this. So work order created date between these two dates. So this is what we call it as a date range block. So created date, created date. So here it can be 1st of April, here it can be 30th of April. That will be decided in your SLA module. So this block is created, this block is created. Now it has to be linked with an AND operator. Bring AND. So this is the range block. This is the condition block. Now you have created one full numerator. Now let us go and create our denominator. Denominator, everyone knows it's a date range block. Go to work order, create a date, and copy that. And operator is between and work order resolution 2 denominator work order partial numeric dynamic values. So now we have created numerator and denominator. Here you will not see the KPIs. The reason basically it has a predefined filter which filters out the partial KPIs. This will show only the complete KPIs. If you want to see all the KPIs, simply what you can do is you can just clear the filter. If you clear the filter, you can see complete and all the partial KPIs. So these are the two partial KPIs we have just created: work order resolution 1 and work order resolution 2. So now let us go ahead and create one complete KPI. KPIs work order resolution. Complete work order active. Now this is a complete dynamic, and now you have used all these 4 modules and you have used this operation and functions. This here is the KPIs. Here in KPIs it will list you all the partial KPIs which can be used to create one complete KPI. So these are the 2 partial KPIs we have just created. Now, as we know, this is the numerator, this is the denominator. Let's use this block to give the output in percentage. If you remember, I said it has to be in a percentage. So I'm saying the output has to be in percentage. So click save. Okay, so now we have created one complete KPI also. So let us go back to our subcontractor SLA and start creating the SLAs. Select the contract, SLA. So when I click add, work order resolution is one complete KPI which we have created. So KPI group is work order, status, make it as active. Here the target. So the target is, so before target, let me go back to the threshold value. What is the threshold value? Threshold value is the value or the number which is used which is used to compare the resolution time in the block. In our case, we said it was 8 hours. 8 hours. Now this has to be in minutes. So 8 into 60 minutes is 4. Let's say 480 minutes. This is the threshold value, and the target is, now the client is dictating the target. So all the work orders which are completed within this 480 minutes, and for the target for that is, let's say, greater than or equal to 90%, which means 90% of all the work orders should have been completed within 480 minutes from the date of creating the work request. So now you have configured the KPI. Now the target weight of this one particular KPI in the KPI group. So now we have a group called work order for the KPIs. In this group, what is the weight of this particular KPI? At the moment, let's say 100, because this is the only KPI we have. So when you complete this, here's the KPI is created. This is the target score, and the achieved score is 0 at the moment, because there's no KPI which has been completed within this time range. There's no work order which has been completed within this time range. Now next, go to scoring part. So now this is what SLA is all about. So here, if you see the threshold value, the target is 90%, achieved is 0, target weight is 100%, because this is the weight of this KPI, and weighted achieved is 0%, because there's no score achieved, and out of 100%, it's 0. Before we get into the scoring, I would also recommend you to go back to KPI and create one more KPI and see how how this works. So this was the first example. Let's go to example number 2. Work order completion percentage. So what is this KPI? This KPI is basically wants the customer wants to know what is the total completion percentage of work orders every time. Whenever the client wants to check the work order completion, it has to be, let's say, 80% completed, 90% completed. That target will be fixed in SLA. But let us create a block or a KPI block to measure the work order completion percentage. How you will create, as I mentioned before, range block, range block. It remains the same. Only the difference will be the condition block. Here the condition will be all the work order status with completed statuses. You have to list down all the work orders which has a status of completed. That completed status will be added with the work order date range and will divided with the work order date range. So let's go and create this KPI now. So for this, let's say work order completion 1. Let's say partial. Again, work order partial. So here the condition block is work order status with completed. Work order status. You have to see in work order if you have any status based touch point. Okay, here's work order status. Work order status for me is completed. So work order status completed, which has to be with a date range. For date range, go to work order, again go to create date, copy this create date, create a block between, and this has to be connected to this block with an AND operator, right? Yeah. So this is our partial KPI, which is basically the numerator. Work order status completed within this date range. So let's go and create a denominator. So we have created this numerator now. Let's go and create a denominator. Work order completion to say denominator work order partial dynamic. Save. So now we have created partial numerator, we have created partial denominator. Let's create a complete KPI now. Work order completion percentage. KPI group work order complete description. Let's say complete dynamic. Now here in KPIs we can get the partial KPIs. Now select a percentage operator. So now we have created one more complete KPI, which is work order completion percentage. Now let's go back to subcontractor. In the subcontractor, I'm selecting the contract list. In that contract list, I'm selecting the contract which we created now. Going to SLA. So there's only one SLA now. I'm going to create one more SLA. So select select KPI, work order completion percentage, active. Select operator should be greater than or equal to, let's say again this is the 90%. Here you will not have any values in the threshold because there was no block in the KPI block which requires a value, threshold value. This KPI doesn't have any threshold value. Here you need to give the target weight of this KPI in work order group. So there is one KPI which is work order resolution, which has taken 100% weightage already. So here you cannot give any weightage. So before doing this, what you have to do is you have to go back to that SLA, edit that SLA, and reduce the weight from 100% to, let's say, 50%. So now go to add, select KPIs work completion percentage, active, select operator, greater than or equal to 90%. Target is here, another 50. So work order completion percentage weight is 50%. Work order resolution, the old KPI where target weightage is 50%. So total 100%. Save. So now we have created two KPIs. So in order to get the output for the KPIs for a particular date range, I mentioned before while creating a KPI builder. So we have selected dynamic value in the KPI. So what does it means is, here you have a functionality to select a date range to get an accurate value between April 1 to April 30. This is the KPIs which you have achieved. So here what it says is the work order completion percentage is also 0. The work order resolution is also 0. So now in order to create a percentage here, let's go back to the to work orders, and let's go and do some work order creations to see if that the results reflects back here. So now let me go to work order. So let's follow a process. First, work request is created because we have a KPI which involves work request. So let's say operation and maintenance, KPI test, priority high, low, asset, save. So now I have created a work request. Now as an admin, I'm going to approve that work request from pending to approved so that it will get converted to work order. So once the work order screen is open, let me go and say again KPI test. Select the contract type, schedule today, and the technician is this. Estimated auto complete is 1 hour. Let's save the work order. So the work order has been created. Now the work order is in work order status is scheduled. Now instead of the technician completing the work order, let me go and complete the work order just for test purpose to see the outputs in the KPIs. Edit. Here I'm saying the actual time is, let's say he has consumed 1 hour. So keep it in completed stage. So now what we have done is we have generated a work request and then converted into a work order, and the work order has been scheduled and also completed. So now let's go, and this work request and work order was executed in the asset which was linked to this subcontract. This was the asset on which we did the work orders. Let's go to SLA. Now if I select the date range, now I can see the output. If you see here, work order completion percentage. So the target was 90%. What I have achieved is 50%. The weightage of this KPI was 50%. Out of this 50%, I have achieved 27.8%. And the same for this. If you see, this is target score, this is achieved score, this is target score, this is achieved score for this two KPIs. So now, since we have now know how to create SLAs using the KPI builder, now let's go to the next step, which is scoring. If you go to scoring, this is the actual scorecard of your subcontractor. What I mean by scorecard is, if you see here, the group name is work order group. Under work order group, there are two KPIs. So each KPI has a weightage of 50%, 50%. It's up to you. You can have your own custom weightage. You can give 20% to this, and you can also give 80% to this based on the operational requirements. And the target for both was 90%. What they have achieved is 50%. And okay, now here the group weightage for this group is 0%. I have not given any group weightage, even though they have achieved 50%, which is 27.7 for each KPI. The total score is showing 0%, because we have weightage for two components: the weightage for the KPIs within the group, and also you may have multiple groups. Now you have work order. Tomorrow you may have a group, KPI group for PPM. Day after tomorrow you may have KPI group for work request. You can also have a KPI group for assets, multiple groups. So out of those groups, let's say you have 5 groups. For 5 groups, what is the weightage you are giving to work order group? So order 88, add or edit weightage group. Let me select work order group, and I'm giving 100%. So since I gave here 100%, now my score out of 100 is 55.56%, because I have done 50% of my job here. I have done 50% of my job here. So my scope is approximately 55.56 based on the score generated from the SLA's equations. So yeah, this is the total scoring scorecard of your subcontractor. So based on this, now you know the performance. You now contractually you can ask your subcontractor to say his monthly score should not be less than 80%. His monthly score should not be less than 85%. So based on the on and how to achieve that monthly score, these are the KPIs, key performance indicators, which he has to follow. By achieving these KPIs, he can achieve this total score now. So now you know SLA scoring. Let's go to payout value. Now in payout value, what is payout value? Payout value is basically linking this total score with the commercial value of the contract. What I mean by that is basically, uh, if you see payout value here, payout value is 0% percentage, and the payout value is also 0, because we have not assigned the payout slab yet. No payout slab exists. Please add one. So let me add one payout slab. Create one. Let's say the maximum is 100%. This is basically the score of your subcontractor. Minimum is 91%. So the maximum is 91%, minimum is 91, maximum is 100%. If the score lies between 91% to 100%, you are going to pay 100% of his payment. Add new slab now. So now maximum is, let's say, 90%. Minimum is 81%. Here you are going to pay them 90%. And let me add one more, which is 80% to 0. Let's keep here. You are going to pay them only 70%, for example. So now you have created a payout slab for this contract. So in slab 1, if the score is between 91% to 100%, you will pay them 100% of their invoice value. If the score is between 81% to 90%, you will pay them 90% of their invoice value. If the score is between 0% and 80%, you will pay them only 70% of their invoice value. So what you are doing is you are commercially linking the their score with the commercial value of their contract. So if they achieve score between this value, they will get only 70% of their invoice. If they achieve more than 91%, the 100% will be theirs. So now go back to SLA. Now we have the score of 55%. Now go and see what is the payout value. So now if you see the payout value, you are paying the 70% of the total invoice value, which is basically 34,520 out of 50,000 monthly invoice. So from date to end date, total contract value is 600,000. 600,000 divided by 12 is 50,000 per month. There you are not paying 50,000, you are paying only 34,500, which is 70% of the 50,000. So this is what the subcontractor management is all about. So contract info, assets, services, personnel, budget, used to monitor the budget and get the actual budget statistics. Here. Work order history and item, these two are just history. In SLA, you can get the actual scores. Now you can select different date ranges if you want to select. And scoring will give you for the date range. Let's go back and select April. Yeah, and this is the score for April till date. It may increase maybe by the end of this month, but you have to wait until this end of the month and then calculate the payout value based on the payout slab. So now we have covered subcontractors, we have covered KPI modules. There's something called clients now. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no major difference between clients and subcontractor module. So here in clients, if you want to add a contract, as I said before, you just have to follow the instructions or the guidance provided by the software to complete the entire client contract management process. There you will create a subcontractor. Here you will create client information. Once the client information is created, you will go to contracts and add the client contracts. And again, that contracts will have assets, services, team, budget, SLAs, and everything. So here the performance will be measured for your own team. Here in subcontractor, the performance will be measured for your subcontractor's team. That's the major difference between these two. And if you want to measure the performance of your in-house team without using the client SLAs, you can also do that. If you go to in-house, for each and every employee, you will have a SLA. So you can create an SLA to each and every employee to measure their own targets and performance. So in contract management as a whole, we have subcontractor management, we have client contract management, we have KPI builder, and for in-house we have SLAs. This is what contract management is all about. I hope this session was really helpful, and I have developed few more examples which I can share it with you all so that you can develop your own KPIs. And not to mention, whenever there's an Aladdin implementation happens, our implementation team, our project management team will definitely do their level best to to support the client to generate their own KPIs during the time of implementation. So normally the contract will have not more than 10 or 15 KPIs. So building 10 or 15 KPIs will not be a big task. It's a one-time job. Yes, difficulties may arise, but at the time our team will be always available to support the clients. So this is what the contract management is all about. Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Okay, one attendee has asked a question. The document upload is 10 MB only. It is per upload or total upload? I think you are referring to the contract page. So if I go to contract list here, so this upload size must be less than 10 MB. Yes, here this upload size of 10 MB is for one file, not for multiple files. So you can upload any number of files, but each file should not exceed the total size of 10 MB. one attendee is saying that wonderful explanation. Thank you. Thanks for the appreciation. Any doubts? Just one more question. The email address in the contact info gives any email reminder or related to anything? Yes, the email which you mentioned in the contact info page, that email will be used to send a reminder to the contractors, subcontractors representative that the contract is about to expire. So whenever when the contract approaches the expiry date, there will be an email notification goes to two parties. One, the actual Aladdin user, who is the admin, who will receive the notification that the contract is about to expire, and the contract subcontractors representative, he will also receive the email notification that the contract is about to expire. Hope this answers your question. There's one question from one attendee. He's asking for, can we get ppm KPI? Yes, of course you can get ppm KPI. So when you click KPI here, when you go to KPI canvas, as I mentioned before, you have four modules: work order, work request, PPM, and assets. So this PPM tools can be used to generate any number of KPIs you want to generate. For an example, I can generate one PPM KPI now. Let's say the completion status of PPM work orders, for example. So let me go to the status. So now all completed or closed status with the work order range of sorry. So if you see, here is one ppm numerator I have created. So this, all these blocks have been created using the touch points or parameters I have in ppm module. So in ppm module I have created, this is the range block, which is the ppm work orders created between these two date ranges, and this is the conditional block. So this will filter down all the ppms which are having the status closed within this date range. This is the numerator, and for this the denominator is the date range, same denominator. With this you can get the completion percentage of the ppm within this date range. This is just one example. You can create a lot of KPIs using more touch points we have in the system. Hope that answers your question. Can we extract any, there's one more question, which is, can we extract any report on this contract payout slab or on contract? Yes, of course, you can generate the report. There are multiple reports actually. You have got here, I think I have not shown the contract management report, but still you can go to personal subcontractors contract list. So if you see here, you can generate this output also in an Excel template. So this Excel will give you the score of the particular SLAs, and here it will give you a printout of your scorecard also for all the SLAs. So this is the group, work order is the group, these are the two KPIs, this was the target, and this was achieved, and this is the total score achieved. And in PDF as well. These are the SLA scoring for each and every contract. This scoring can be attached with the invoice before you can approve the invoice value. And there is one more contract management reporting module which I have not shown here. Hopefully in the next session I should be able to explain you the reporting. It's a small module which will give you the outputs on all the activities what we have performed here. I'm sorry, I did not show the contract management reports. I just remember. Just one more question. This KPIs can be used with any other contracts, or it is linked to any of the contracts we have created? Very good question. This KPIs can be, since I told you before, this KPIs are like a universal KPIs, or this can be used once the KPI is created here. This becomes the repository of all the KPIs you have created. This KPIs can be used in any contract, any number of SLAs, or it might be in the subcontractor contract, it might be in the client management contract, or you can use the same KPI in your in-house team SLAs as well. So once the KPI is created, that becomes your KPI library. Use the KPI wherever you want to use. There's no problem in that. There's one good question. When setting up the contract budget, do I need to allocate the whole contract value? Is it mandatory? No. It's not mandatory to allocate the whole contract budget. You can keep some part of your allocated budget without allocating. There's no problem in that. But the only thing is you cannot exceed the planned budget. So for example, let's say in our case it was 600,000 is the annual budget, so which means you cannot exceed the 600,000 value, but you can allocate 500,000 now, and by mid of the year if you want to use the remaining 100,000 you can use it anytime. There's no mandatory or validation available there. Hope that answers your question. There's one more question. Is all the tabs in contract management is mandatory? Do I need to fill all the tabs or successfully create a contract? No, in order to just create a contract, you don't really have to fill all the tabs. Just filling the contract info is more than enough. But in order to take the full advantage of the contract management functionality like SLAs, KPIs, payout slab, budgeting, you have to fill the remaining tabs. But if you want to create only contracts, you can just create contract information, upload the contract, and you can you can complete the task from there itself. But it's always advisable, since you have the functionalities, good functionalities available in the software, it's advisable to use those by filling all the remaining tabs. Okay, one question. Only admin can see KPIs on assets. Very good question. This I forgot to mention before. So KPI, the contract management functionality is available only in admin, as I mentioned before. Actually, I did actually. Based on that, the KPI results, the KPI configuration, the SLAs outputs, the payout slabs, everything will be visible only to the admin, not to anyone else, not to requester, not to crew. So again, in admin, if you have more than one admin, you can have permission levels for different types of admins. Let's say if you have an operation manager who wants to see all this information, you can give him contract management permission. If you have a site engineer to whom you don't want to give all this contractual details, you can hide contract management module permission to that one particular admin. Hope that answers your question. Yes, I'm happy to answer any more question if you have. Okay, there's one more question. KPI can be seen on mobile app. No, at the moment we don't have the KPI functionality on our admin mobile apps. There's one more question from one attendee. If I have lot of contracts, can I import it in bulk? Yes, you can import the contract informations in bulk. You can do that. If you go to clients, for example, upload client, upload properties, upload contracts. Using this, we have a standard template using which you have to fill all the contractual information and you can upload it directly into the system if you have more than 10-15 contracts. There's one question from one attendee. If I create a dynamic KPI and then use as a static in another contract, technically you cannot do that because when you create a KPI as a dynamic, you cannot change the status of that KPI anywhere else in the system except the KPI builder. So if you want to use that KPI as a dynamic and if you want to change it as a static, then the SLA in which that particular KPI is consumed as dynamic will not function in a way in which it has to function. Okay, I think I have answered almost every question. There's one more question. I think this is the last question. Can we see KPI in dashboard? No, at the moment we cannot see KPI in the dashboard. We have got some predefined KPI dials in the dashboard, which are around 23 KPI dials. At the moment, our KPI is fixed with those KPIs. Since these KPIs are user-defined KPIs and it involves a lot of data processing, at the moment we have not showed it into a dashboard. Inshallah, definitely it's part of our development plan. So once that is done, all of our clients will receive an automatic update where you can see the KPI dashboard, KPI results in the dashboard itself. Okay. Now we have approached the end of the session. I hope everyone has enjoyed this session and it was informative. For any clarification, any questions if you have, feel free to get in touch with me. My email ID is akbar@sgeme.com, or you can visit our website and place your request anytime so that one of our business consultant will get in touch with you within next 24 hours. Thank you. Stay safe. Uh, See you soon. Bye.